Hey, it's Kirsten Roberts from KRAD TV. I am so stoked to have the incredible Ryan Levesque on the show today. Now, we're from Australia and your surname is a challenging one to pronounce over here. So how do you pronounce it?
You got it right. It's Levesque. Yes.
I have heard it a few different ways, and so I thought let's just ask the man himself.
Hey, there you go.
Ryan is such an inspiration. So he has built multi-million-dollar businesses in 23 different industries. He's just done a shitload of work and generated over $100 million of sales across those different industries. And this year he's launched a book. It's called The Ask Formula. It's #1 on, I don't know, another 23 different lists. Match that to the 23 different industries. And what I love about Ryan and why I'm so excited to have him on is not so much about, he's so awesome, he's created these huge businesses. It's how much he helps other people. So I've been working with Ryan, following some of the stuff he does for a while now, and he's so committed and grateful for the opportunities to help people from who are just starting to the massive, 8-figure businesses. And I think that's just such an awesome quality of how much you care about helping other people and changing people's lives. So stoked to have you on the show today.
Well, Kirsten, I'm so grateful for that introduction, and those are really kind, sweet words. So I appreciate that. And I know sometimes your words are a little bit more of the 4-letter variety, so shall we say? So I know people who follow you appreciate your candor and honesty. So I'm super thankful for that. So I'm psyched to be here.
Brilliant. Awesome. Yes. Don't worry about if you drop a swear word or an F-bomb on this show. So I really want to kick off by getting into what's your philosophy on the role business and life play together. So how do you view where business fits into your life, or where your life fits into your business, given that you've achieved so much in your business?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I was having an interesting conversation about this with someone the other day about work-life balance or work-life boundary or work and personal boundary. And my philosophy on this might be a little extreme, a little counterintuitive, but I think this is why it's worth bringing up and why it's worth having a conversation around. And I believe if you study other species, if you study cats, you study dogs, there's no other species on the planet that differentiates work from play. If you study the way puppies, when they're young, what do? And they tug on ears, they tug on sticks, or cats where they're playing with a ball of yarn. Really what they're doing is they're practicing that play is really an approximation for their work. So it would be, in a case of a cat, it would be hunting, right? Hunting prey. They're kind of playing with the ball of string. And so this artificial construct that we have, that there's work and then there's not work, is bizarre. We're the only species that thinks like this. And I think that's why there's a lot of dissatisfaction by so many people. It's like, all right, I'm done working now and I'm walking away. And I'm not saying that we don't need time to recharge our batteries. We don't need time to unplug and to step away from something, no matter what it is that you're doing. But I think the key to happiness in life, in part, is to find that thing that you cannot differentiate work from play. That for you can't define that boundary, right? It's so hard for you to define that you can't find it. And once you've found that thing that your work feels like play, as trite as that might sound, everything else falls into place. Now, the key is finding what that thing is. And I think part of that is really searching for what is it about business, because business is behind no matter what it is that you do. Business, if you want to make a living, right? You got to find what part of that process are you passionate about. And for me, that was the thing that unlocked a big block in my life. Was when I first went into business for myself, I was fixated on finding the right market, finding the right group of people to serve. And I struggled, and we can talk about this, until I kind of let myself go and just let myself run with the process. And I said, you know what? I'm just gonna start my first business as a practice business. And by practice business, I'm not gonna worry about the market. This isn't gonna be the market that I'm gonna be in for the rest of my life. The first market we went into, as funny as it sounds, is we taught people how to make jewelry using Scrabble tiles and origami paper. Talk about a market that I am not passionate about at all. But what I became passionate about is certain parts of the process. I became obsessed with how to figure out what triggers, what is it that causes people to buy? What makes them motivated enough to spend money? And I became really interested in those facets that the market almost became irrelevant. And it was this process that became really fascinating to me, which was the early part of this ask formula that you talked about in the introduction. So I think that's the key takeaway when it comes to my position, at least, on the work-life balance question.
I love that response. And I absolutely agree that, you know, if we can find the business, if we can find the thing inside of us, that passion that matches with our unique skills, that it just completely fills us up each day, then there is no distinction. Like, you're living your dream. And people talking about, you know, hanging out for a Friday or hanging out for a holiday and that sort of stuff, then, you know, they're just almost pretending in the rest of their life,
right,
doing it to get money in so they can go and do these other things, as opposed to living what's inside of them. And it's interesting, though, that so many, it's a couple of things that I find really interesting out of that. One is that yours was about the process. Like, it wasn't about what you were selling. It wasn't about the starting point, what you were selling. It wasn't about the end point, who the customer was. It was about the process in the middle and how to use that. And that was an awesome, yeah, I haven't heard people talk about their passion being from that perspective. Usually it's, oh yeah, it's these types of customers or these type of things I like to sell, not so much about the process is what really inspires me. And I love to hear that.
What's funny is it's such a great, and you've actually even opened my own mind to and clarified my thinking around this. And it's sort of like, if you've ever taken a great trip, right? What's the most, at the end of the day, like, let's be honest with ourselves. What's the most fun part of the trip? It's planning it. It's talking about it. It's actually going through it. When you arrive at the ultimate destination of where you want to go, I mean, it's great, right? It feels good. You go on a 10-mile, I've done 20-mile hikes before, right? Getting to the summit feels good, but it's like a moment in time. The best part is when you're on that hike, the conversation you're having with the person next to you, putting one foot in front of the other, the struggle, overcoming obstacles, and getting there. It's that journey. Right? And so if you look at business as just a metaphor for that journey, and if you fixate on that process, we all go through the process. The destination is always going to change. And the destination in so many ways is fleeting, right? Because you reach that summit, and as soon as you get to the summit, what happens? You're looking at that mountain over there and you're saying, man, it'd be really cool to get to that summit too. And that horizon is always, it's always changing. So what you said, the way you said it, just I think was profound. And for anybody who's like kind of in our world trying to do this, I think that's worth re-listening to, about really enjoying the journey and in our case, the process.
Yeah, awesome. And the interesting thing also I loved about what you're talking about is, you know, finding that passion and what's inside of you. And so many of the people that I work with, they're like me and like where I've come from. So 40-something, generally chicks who's smart chicks, they've done a lot, they've achieved a lot, but they've almost like compromised their dreams and their passions because of kids, in a way that you take the part-time job because it gives you flexibility and ease. You make choices based on what allows you to do what you should be doing as a mother. I hate the word should, it drives me friggin' bonkers. But what you should be doing, but also you compromise your true passions because, you know, spending time with the kids in the earlier years becomes a higher priority, and then you sort of lose yourself a bit in that process. So many chicks I talk to get to the age of 40 and they're like, holy fuck, is this all there is? You know, I know I've got more inside of me. I know I'm capable of more, but I just don't quite know how to tap into it, how to get there and how to touch it, because it's been shrouded in, you know, looking after the kids, you know, getting set up in the house, all these sorts of things. What advice would you give to those people who feel lost in a way, like they're not able to reach in and touch what's inside them and work out what their passion is so they can build this life where there is no distinction between work and play?
It's such a great question. And in the book, there's a chapter that was probably the thing I was most reluctant to share. And the chapter is called The Letter. And the letter is a letter that I wrote to myself, and I addressed it to my mother and actually sent it to her. And it was a letter, it was the longest letter I'd ever written in my life. It was about 25 pages. And I was at this point, and I was earlier in my life. I'm in my 30s now, but I was in my mid-20s at the time. We didn't have kids. We've got 2 kids now. I didn't have kids at the time, but basically it was a letter. And the point of the letter was, I've got this fire inside of me, and it's almost gone. It's like this close to being gone. There's like one last ember that is just a little red. And I said, I don't do stories in my life where I was ignited. And I recounted, I look back in my history, and there are a few stories that I told. And basically, the letter was a commitment to myself. And I said, this is my personal manifesto, that I'm going to recommit myself like I did at these times in my life when I overcame adversity, because what I'm about to tackle is going to be the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I might fail. Who the hell knows? But I got to do this, because if I don't do this now, it's going to be too late. And I wrote that letter 2008. And I sent it to my mom. And I was living in China. My mom was in the United States. And we were the only 2 people in the world who had ever laid our eyes on this letter. And almost 10 years later, I casually mentioned this to my publisher. And he said, Ryan, I need to see this letter. I said, I can't. Well, first, I don't even know if I have it. I'll look, I don't know if I have it. Number 2, like, it's super vulnerable, it's super embarrassing. And he said, just let me take a look. And I just want to see this. And I had to dig up the letter. I'd send it from my old company email address, but fortunately I CC'd my Gmail address for some reason. It was an attachment. I reread it. And when I read it again, I mean, it brought tears to my eyes. And I remembered the dark place that I was at, where I was at this low. And I knew if I didn't do something, that was it. And I sent him the letter, and he read it. And he said, Ryan, every struggling, aspiring entrepreneur needs to read this. They need to know what you went through to get through what you walked through to get to where you are today, because we've all been there. And I think what it came down to for me was digging back, and for my advice, to answer your direct question, Kristen, around what should someone do who's at this point, is to find those times in your life where you had to dig deep. Because we've all had them, right? We've all had times where we had to dig deep to do something that we thought might have been impossible. And we did it, right? We did it. And the outside world didn't believe us. No one thought we could do it. And these are times that are very private, usually. They're things that outside people might not appreciate. We all have those times. Write them down, because that's what it's going to take. And if you recommit yourself to go to those places that you needed to go to make those things happen, you will make it happen. And reread that letter that you write to yourself often, because you'll need to remind yourself of what you needed to do. And that's what it takes. It takes digging deep. It's not easy. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to lie. But we all have it in us. And we've all had times in our life where we've done that. And that's going to be personal to you. And you want to look back at those prior success patterns that you've had. Remind yourself of what you're capable of. Because we forget. We discount it, right? We lose ourselves along the way. But you remind yourself of what you're capable of, and remind yourself of why you want to do this, and you'll get through it. And so anybody in that situation, that's what I would advise. And take a look at that letter. It was super embarrassing to share, because I never intended on the world to see it. But I think when you see, with someone like I've gone through to get to where I was, to where we are today, it's a reminder that we're not that different. Like, it's not like it's 2 different groups of people. We all struggle with the same shit. Whether you're a 45-year-old mom or a 25-year-old kid having a quarter-life crisis, it ain't no different. We all think it's too late, right? We all think, shit, I missed my opportunity. The ship has sailed. I felt that way when I was 25. I saw people who were 10 years younger, 8 years younger, who were already on this path. And I thought, I'm already locked into my path. So it does not matter what age you're at. And you see people who are, I work with people today who are in their 40s, who are either going through a career change, starting their first business, and they're finally getting traction. So it's not an age thing. It's more of a mindset thing.
Wow, that just such a story, a special story to share. My heart is so warm after that story, and I truly thank you for sharing that and giving us that insight. I'm actually a bit emotional about it because it brings up so much for me. Like, it's the same thing. You go through so much and you forget how awesome you are and how many things you've achieved, and that you're an amazing person on the inside just by being you, and you don't need anybody else to, and that you can actually achieve this. And like, it's even like my first year in business, I at the end of the first year, I was still beating myself up about what I hadn't done, and I should be doing this. And because we had a lot of old debts from a failed business in the past, money came in and went straight out again. So I did 185 grand in my first 12 months of business, working 4 days, 2 kids on the autism spectrum. And I never said, good job, well done, you can do this, you're going to be awesome. It was like, fuck, you got to do this, get on, do more, be more, learn more. And, it's such a great reminder to reflect regularly on the amazing achievements that you've done, the awesomeness inside of you, and, that recommitment, writing that letter to yourself to find out, don't let that ember go out. I just love that. And I hope everybody on this call uses that as a takeaway today. Go and write that letter to yourself. Turn this off, go and write your letter, and commit to yourself what it is that you want to do, that you want to be, that you want to achieve, and don't let that fire go out inside, because that's when we're settling in life. That's when we're giving up and not creating the most beautiful version of ourselves, for both for us but also for our kids, because imagine the amazingness we can instill in them if we're living to our full potential and delight and capacity and love life every single day. Like, and how's your view of the world changed since the kids have been born?
Yeah, I guess the stakes are higher, right? So for me, one of the things that we were fortunate enough to go through after I quit my corporate job and we basically started over, we had nothing. So I left a cushy 6-figure job with all the perks that you can imagine. I was an expat living in Shanghai. I had housekeeper, meals provided, housing provided, car, driver, 5-star hotels, first-class airfare, to moving into student housing with my wife, who was doing a PhD at Hong Kong University. And we moved back to the States after our first business. Well, we made a little bit of money and then it failed. And we had nothing. We had no safety net. So we donated everything we owned. We moved into a tiny 500 square foot apartment and lived on a $36,000 a year salary that my wife had as a museum curator. And that was it. And we lived lean. We had a mattress on the floor. We had nothing. We had no furniture. So we had a mattress on the floor, 2 lawn chairs, a beat up TV. And our date night was to go out for burgers that cost us $3 because they had dollar burgers. We'd get 3 burgers. We'd do 1.5 each. We'd split them. That was like our date night. So I'm blessed. I feel blessed that we went through that lean time because I knew what it would be like. It eliminated all fear. I knew, like, if we were legitimately poor and we're really stuck, this is realistically as bad as it would get. Like, we wouldn't be homeless. Like, this is as bad as it would get. And to be honest, it's fine. It's okay. Now, my worst case scenario threshold is a lot higher with kids, because I could live in a cardboard box. I mean, I could live in my car, and with an internet connection, I'd make it happen, but I would never put my kids through that. So it's just a higher sense of urgency. Like, my floor that I'm willing to consider as my worst case scenario is much higher now. And I think that comes with kids. And so what does that mean? Maybe not taking the same type of risks. Also, probably, I don't have super high material needs myself. Like you see me, I joke about this. I've got like 35 of this same shirt that I'm wearing right now in my closet. They're bought from, you guys don't have Target in Australia, do you?
Yeah, we have Target.
You do? Okay, so you know Target. I mean, come on. I get this, I don't know what it costs in Australian dollars, but full price, like not on sale, $14.95. Usually I'm getting them on sale for $9.8. This is what I wear. I don't have high material needs. So for me personally, what am I driven to do? As crazy as it sounds, money's not super high on my motivation scale, but there are certain things I do want to provide for our children. So we have a private tutor for our children that teach both of our boys Chinese. They speak Chinese, and I wanted them to learn Chinese. That's important. That's not inexpensive. We send both of our children to like a private Montessori school. That's not inexpensive either. So those are the things that matter to me, investing in education. So for me, the fear, the floor is more about not being able to provide those things for them. And I think we all, as parents, like we all have the same common need of wanting to do the best we can for our children. And I'd say the other thing too is, this is interesting, is, you know, I want my children to look at me, my two boys, to look at me as an example. I want them to be, you know, I want them to look at dad, and they're a little young to do this now, but now's the time to do it. I want them to look at me and say, I want to be like dad when I grow up. And I don't want that to end when they're young. I want them to go through life in all ways as best as possible. Now, am I flawed and do I have problems? And am I, of course, like, you know, I make a million mistakes every single day. And it's really just about trying to do better. But that's the paradigm for me, as I want them to look at their dad. Boys in particular, there's a thing that boys look to their dads, their fathers, and they either want to be exactly like their father, that's their paradigm for who they want to be, or they want to be the exact opposite. There's very little room. It's this thing with boys, and I've studied this a little bit more closely because we've got two boys, and I want them to be in that category of wanting to be like their dad, looking at their dad as the example, not the opposite. And so every single day, that's one of the things that motivates me is, are they going to look back and say, you know, yes, you know, this is who I want to become. And so that's a huge motivator as well, is that fear of the floor and aspiring to be that example. And it's not about, this is like the big takeaway to something you brought up earlier, which ties into both questions about what you should do next. And this was a big takeaway for me that's like changed my life, is it's not about getting it perfect. It's just about getting it going. And we have this paralysis analysis, or this perfection analysis fear that we all have, where it's, okay, just got to get everything together. Once everything's all set, once it's all set, then I'm going to take that step, right? It ain't ever going to, that's like it ain't ever going to be perfect, right? So, and you ain't ever going to be ready. I was not ready. Everything that I've done that's been meaningful in life, deciding to launch a book and then having the aspiration that it's going to be a best-selling book, like I wasn't ready for either of those things. It's literally like, all right, close your eyes and take the step, because you're never going to be ready, but you make yourself ready when you take that step. And that's the takeaway. It's not about getting it perfect. It's just about getting it going.
I love it. I love it. It's just that first step and improve it in motion. Just get into it, get shit done, get started.
Yep.
And love it. And thank you so much for your time today. And I'm really grateful you've made 50 copies of your book actually available to all the K-Rad community, which is awesome.
Yes.
So, and look, the book, I'd really encourage you to get this, because I love the book because it gives Ryan's story and his journey and his thoughts, how he views life, is really just so interesting to see how he, you know, faces adversity, overcomes things and creates the life that he wants. But then there's like absolute step-by-step, step 1, step 2, step 3, how to understand your audience more and connect with them more in like an awesome formula, which is this ask formula. So I really encourage you to check the book out. And Ryan, where can they go and grab it?
Absolutely. So books, you know, came out of nowhere, as you mentioned, become the #1 best-selling book in the United States, national bestseller. on so many lists, USA Today, LA Times, all the lists, #1 book on Amazon. So you can get it anywhere that books are sold. But I've got 50 copies set aside. It has a nice little Post-it note with your name on it. And here's how to grab one of those to be one of the first 50 people to get the free copy of the book. And free, I just asked that you cover a small cost of shipping and handling, and I'll ship it to you anywhere. So it doesn't matter if you're next door to where you are. If you're in my backyard here in Austin, Texas, I don't care. And the way to get access to one of these copies, and this is what you want to write down or pay attention to, it's go to askformula.com. So askformula.com. And there you'll see a couple different options. Find the option to get a physical copy of the book. And whatever the price of the book, you'll see a coupon field asking for a coupon. Enter the coupon KRAD. So KRAD. Hit enter, and it'll take the price of the book from whatever it is down to free. And all I ask is that you just pay that small shipping charge. And we've got 50 of those coupon codes set up, 50 books in the office right here, and I'll ship it to you anywhere in the world. So it's an honor to be able to do this, Kirsten, for you, as a way of saying thanks for just helping spread this message and being such an awesome supporter, and to everyone here who's listening. So thank you.
And thank you for your time. I've so enjoyed today's conversation, and I wish we were actually sitting around a table with a glass of wine, able to have a couple of hours of just chewing the fat and talking. Chewing the fat, that's Aussie for talking, not actually chewing the liquid.
I've heard that one before. I'm not fluent in Aussie English, but I'm getting there. So I love it. I love it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And K-Radders, what a privilege it is to have Ryan on today. So I hope you enjoyed it. Check out his book, askformula.com, and remember to put that coupon of K-Rad in there. We'll see you at the next episode of K-Rad TV. Be real, be rad, and be free.
Awesome.